This is YNN on the agenda.
The presidential election took on new life this week with Republican Mitt Romney's selection of Congressman Paul Ryan as his running mate. YNN's Harvey Kronberg looks beyond the headlines at some of the calculations involved.
5%. According to some polling, that's how few voters are undecided in the race for the presidency. Well, maybe, but the big declines in Mitt Romney's approval ratings over the last month suggest that voters are a little more volatile than they're telling pollsters. But it's the 5% number that makes Romney's choice of Paul Ryan as a running mate so fascinating. The last time Republicans faced such a narrow spread of undecided was back in 2004 when George W. Bush squared off against John Kerry. Back then, master strategist Karl Rove decided it was simply too expensive to try and persuade such a small percentage of voters. Instead, he pioneered techniques to find and motivate Republican-leaning voters in traditionally Democratic areas. This so-called micro-targeting had been around since the 90s, but Rove took it to a whole new level. Now, add social media to the mix and Mr. Romney's superior fundraising, and a 5% contest is almost exclusively about campaign execution. Which brings us back to Paul Ryan and the undecided 5%. He's about as sharp a contrast to Sarah Palin as you can get. Smart, articulate, and perfectly capable of becoming president if something terrible happened. And most importantly, he has the charisma to galvanize Republican voters and the intellectual heft to do it without diverting the narrative away from Mr. Romney. The real question is whether or not Ryan's efforts to privatize a portion of Social Security and turn Medicare into a voucher program shake loose older voters who detested the ideas when first introduced. Until now, seniors have been some of Mr. Romney's strongest supporters. Many Americans lost their retirements in the stock market during the financial collapse, and seniors' high satisfaction with Medicare is well known. Mr. Romney's gamble is that electrifying his base does not come at the cost of doubling or tripling the number of undecided voters. Increased undecideds would surely come from his side of the ledger. Once their confidence in a candidate is shaken, it's very hard to win them back. And that's what's on the agenda. I'm Harvey Kronberg, and you can find me at quorumreport.com.